and welcome to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And as we are preparing ourselves to start up and waiting for a few people to join, I hope everybody is suitably warm. It's not too bad an evening tonight. Bearable, at least, in that regard. So, I think it will be a good one. Welcome there to Kharki. Welcome, welcome. We're just getting started. I don't know if I've seen you on the live before, but welcome nevertheless. As we get ourselves going, I will remind you that what we basically do on this channel in general is we look at all of the cool things that are both weird, wonderful, supernatural and paranormal, and doing that we bounce around the world looking at different countries and cultures to see what it is that different people believe about things for our own curiosity and education in that regard, and it's really quite fun to do. But we theme our searches around, and we started off this particular streak, as it were, shall we call it that? Hey Solly, with werewolves. And we very quickly realized that in fact you don't get werewolves everywhere. Partly, I suppose, because you don't get wolves everywhere. But the idea of, the concept of, you do get everywhere. So they might not be werewolves, but they might be something else. The idea of shapeshifters is quite big worldwide, for all kinds of reasons, I'm sure. Maybe even the reason that they might exist, who knows? We'll find out. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it for our interest. But as we do so, I do remind you that on this channel we have just one rule. Don't be rude. If you are rude, we will give you the boot. We don't expect you to agree or disagree, to believe or disbelieve. It's entirely up to you. We absolutely do encourage comment as much as you like. We like comments. We love comments. And give your opinion. But remembering that we have people on this channel of all different religions and cultures, we expect you to be polite about it and accept that even if you don't believe, others might. So give them their just right to a certain degree of politeness. That said, I do encourage you to like, share, subscribe, send all the likes you want, send lots and lots of gifts, because we rely on you guys to keep the channel running. Hey Kurti, it is up to you to keep the channel going, so send lots of support. And right there, look at that, 30 likes already. And welcome to user 3973282, and I didn't get all of it, but welcome nevertheless. I did try. Always good to see people return. I do approve of that immensely. It means I'm doing something right. So in that regard, thank you for those who have come back. And tonight was a request. Tonight. And I must admit that when it was requested, I didn't think, thank you, Letle, I didn't think we'd have that much to talk about on the requested topic. But it turns out I was wrong. Actually, actually there's a lot more to look into than you might think, because in the general overviews of things that we've done in the past, it seemed that there was a small amount, but not a lot, of shapeshifter type things in the country of choice. But boy, was I wrong. And of course, as we are going around, hey there, Rakesh, welcome, welcome, and Grr, we are going to be doing South Africa. Now, I do have a little bit of backup in that I have some of the other African countries as well to touch on. If we need the extra chat, if people don't send their comments or join in. So we do have a bit of backup for that. But nevertheless, it seems we have a number of interesting things, and one or two of them, I will admit, I'm actually a little shocked at myself. I did not know them all, which is pretty cool. So we do know that obviously in South Africa, not only do we have quite a lot of interesting mythology and beliefs and more, and in fact quite a bit of it, hey there Shiloh, quite a bit of it of course is extant. It's not stuff from the past, it's currently believed. Raptor XD, welcome, welcome. So we have that going for us, but there's more than even I thought, so I'm looking forward to tonight very much. I think it's going to be a particularly good one. So stick around. And thanks for the follow there, Shiloh. Let's find out what we can do. But as we progress, hope you have a good cup of something. I have tea and my meds. Public health warning. Don't drink too many energy drinks. I did. It gave me diabetes. It's not fun. I do not enjoy it. Just a thought. But I do like them. But yes, because of that, unfortunately, I am now diabetic and on pills. Vianney, welcome. So let us begin and say, what can we talk about that is particularly South African to do with shape-shifting? Now, one set of beliefs, mythologies, and more that we haven't really gone into now that I think about it, is that of the Khoisan. And interestingly enough, right there we see the very first of our shapeshifters, the Ikagan. Now, Ikagan is the Khoisan trickster god. Plays much the same role as someone like Loki, if you're a Marvel fan, or a Norse fan. And bit of a trouble causer from what I understand, and is able to change into all kinds of things. But despite the fact that he's a bit of a troublemaker and a trickster, a very important person, and therefore not quite a bad creature at all, but definitely not one to mess with, able to change into a human and any animal particularly wanted to, a kind of a deity, if you will, but mostly depicted as a praying mantis. And as we know, the praying mantis is very important to the Khoisan. So right away we have some interesting things there. Now, one we have encountered before but we'll go into again is of course the Bultungen, the were hyena, which we have seen all over Africa, which makes you worry that maybe it's real. Then, of course, we have one which is quite important to me, living in the Drakensberg, is Impundulu, because absolutely. And then, of course, a very interesting set of creatures, if you will, known as the Amanuna, which we shall get into. Now, this gives us our base overview, but that doesn't cover it all by any manner or form. There's a lot more than just that going, so let's get started. Have we heard of the Vata Bobbian? Devet, I have, and thank you for the follow. In fact, the Vata Bobbian will be coming up in tonight's live, so hang on to your hat. He's one of the lesser known, but nevertheless one of those things such as it is that we will have to touch on, because we are doing South Africa after all. So yes, and falling into an interesting particular niche in terms of cryptids as well. So yes, we will touch on that. But Ikagin. The Ikagin is a creator, a demiurge, most often depicted as a praying mantis, belongs to the Khoisan, with the... Okay, I'm just going to say that he has a wife, because if you think I can pronounce that, you're not only dreaming, but I would have to be quite possibly very drunk and chewing cornflakes at the same time. Yeah, I'm just not quite able to pronounce the very complicated Khoisan language. So we're not even going to try with that right there, just so as you know, because my word. And it's like about a 15-syllable name. So we're going to accept that he has a wife and kids. So very often just referred to as Mantis, the folk hero indeed of the Khoisan, a trickster god that can shapeshift, usually taking the form of the praying mantis, but often also uses other forms like the eland, a louse, a snake, and even a caterpillar. His wife, which we're just going to refer to by the shortened version as Koti, or Koti, is represented as a marmot or a Cape Hyrax, and is known as the mother of bees. And of course, they have a number of children, including Ako, which is their daughter, who is the porcupine, Kogaz, Gewi, Ituenemon, and Gaunu Tsatao. I'm pretty certain I butchered those names very badly. Those are the only ones I dared to try. My word. For anybody that doesn't know, the Khoisan language has 8 different clicks and is insane to try to speak if you are not adept at that kind of thing, and I'm really not. I have enough trouble speaking Zulu. And they only have 3 clicks. So yeah, I'm not very adept with that kind of thing. But we will keep at it, nevertheless. Now, one of the first animals created by Ikagin, and his favorite, was the eland. And he hid it near a secluded cliff to let it grow. But one day, two of his sons were out hunting, and not knowing their father's love for the eland, they killed it, and he was very angry. And he told the one to put the blood from the dead eland into a pot and churn it. And when he was doing so, the blood spattered from the pot onto the ground and turned into snakes. Kagan was displeased. As his son carried on churning, more splattered out, and it turned into hartebeests, and he was unhappy. So he told his wife to clean the pot and add more blood with fat from the heart, and she churned it, and he sprinkled the mixture on the ground, and it turned into a large herd of eland. And this is how Ikagan gave meat to his people to hunt and eat. And Bushmen attribute the wildness of the eland to the fact that Ikagan's sons killed it before it was ready to be hunted, which made it angry. Now, there are quite a lot of different stories, and I think one day we will have to actually go into the Khoisan mythology at some stage to really get into what is a very complex character and system. Yes, pretty much. Devet, you're quite correct, and the eland is considered to be somehow sacred to the Khoisan. They do, on occasion, hunt it in the right time, but they do have to be quite careful. Wat is my opinie oor swart mense? Hulle is daaruit wat? Wat kan 'n mens sê? En ook op TikTok, wat kan 'n mens sê? So, daar is baie mense wat is hierop, en ons is in Suid-Afrika, ons is wat ons is, ons gee nie opinie daaroor. Maar in elk geval, they do hunt for rattles. I must admit that if I ever picked anything to hunt, the last thing I would try to hunt would be a rattle. Because if there is one animal that simply does not understand the concept of fear, it is a rattle. They just don't care. And I think that they are permanently angry. So, yeah, I would be very careful of ever trying to hunt a rattle. If you don't know what a rattle is, it's a honey badger. And the African honey badger is just one of those creatures that doesn't care about anything. They will attack a pride of lions on their own. They are that kind of animal. And win. They are that kind of animal. You get quite a few on the Highveld, I believe, as well. And the only thing that makes them happy is to get honey. And they don't care about bees. They'll just walk in, ignore them. They're very tough-skinned. And they will just take what they want, when they want, how they want. They are like that. I'm willing to bet, Devet, that you're quite careful around them, because they really are vicious. And yeah, they will attack you. No problem. No issues. So an interesting creature, in fact. But as we progress with the idea of Khoisan mythology and such, just quickly, they have a very animistic kind of spirituality, which is again connected with ancestor worship, and very deep connection and reverence for the natural world. So they are very careful how they live and such. And spirits are believed to reside in just about everything. So you do have to be very careful how you deal with almost anything. Of course, you have Ikagan, their main god, and he was the one that taught them the secrets of survival, the art of making fire, hunting, gathering, and more. But he's quite an interesting character. At times he can be really quite silly. At times he is incredibly cunning. But at other times he can be very serious. So he's quite an interesting character in and of himself. They also have important demigod-like heroes, just like the Greeks had people like Heracles and such. They have their own, and Heetzi-Ebib is known for his extraordinary powers, heroic deeds, and managed to even overcome death and be reborn in a way. And there are places that are believed to be the grave sites of Heetzi-Ebib, scattered throughout southern Africa, and they're considered sacred to the Khoisan and are used as places of worship and ritual sacrifice in order to honor both him and the other ancestors and seek their blessings, which is really quite important. De Wet praat ons, u het eiland op die plaas of u het ratels op die plaas? As u bedoel eiland? Ja, nee. De Wet is referring to a particular kind of buck that you get, dankie baie, in South Africa. If you don't know it, it's very large, and I believe the really big ones can even get up to about 1,000 pounds in weight. I mean, they're big, and they're very, very solid in that regard. And with great apologies to the Bushmen, they do taste extremely good. I do like eland, and in fact, there's a butchery near me that sells it, and it really is good. It's a fantastic meat that I think is actually supposed to be far healthier even than beef and stuff. So yeah, if you ever get a chance. Now, who's the bad guy? There you go. De Wet's backed me up and says the biggest one on their farm weighs 1.2 tons. So that gives you an idea. We're not talking a cute little Bambi here. When we say they are big, we mean they are big. They're a serious buck, and they can get aggressive, and of course they've got very good horns. So hunting them is something that you want to be very circumspect about doing, just in case, because they can be kind of overwhelming, but yeah, really tasty. So who is the bad guy to the Khoisan? The bad guy is Gaunab, and he is, of course, the opposition to Ikagan. And he's connected to misfortune, death, and all the darker things of the world. And amongst other things, he too is something of a shapeshifter. But now, in many ways, I personally, when I think of weird creatures, therianthropes, if you will, shapeshifting alone does not make you a weird creature, a therianthrope, and I don't therefore count the gods as true shapeshifters, mostly because, well, they're gods. Of course they can. That's kind of the point. Whereas someone like a werewolf, it's quite a different thing. Ja, Ikagan. Ikagan is die een wat vir hulle, sorry, I keep jumping between languages. De Wet says that, yes, the person I'm talking about, Ikhagen, is why they won't generally ever hunt an eland. And that is absolutely correct, because it's sacred to Ikhagen. But they are very skilled hunters, as you can imagine. Now, there are plenty of other gods, not all of which are important to shape-shifting. So we will come back to the spirits and more in due course. So do not for a moment think that we have finished with the Khoisan, merely for tonight. Now, of course, we have encountered the next one many, many times. It's turned up. Yes, De Wet has pointed out one of the great things about the Bushmen is that they use a special kind of poison arrow in order to hunt with, and using this with remarkably small bows compared to the kind of bows that you will get around the world. They are very effective. The bow is made from a single kind of tree, which is known as the bow tree, because it's the tree they make the bow staves out of. And then the strings are made out of sisal, which of course is a cactus-like plant that grows all over South Africa. Very spiky and tough, but you get really good string from it that's very, very tough. And I use that string all the time. I don't know if I've got any near me. I did have the other day, but I think I put it aside for now, or it's in one of my bags. I also do survival type stuff, videos on another channel, so I had it with the bag I had put together to show on that channel. But sisal's amazing string. It's really strong, it's very cheap, and of course it makes great bowstrings. And De Wet is corrected. In fact, when they make the poison that they put on their arrows, they don't tip the arrows with it. Interestingly enough, the arrows that the Bushmen make have a metal shaft between the wooden shaft and the tip that's sort of thin, and then the tip itself. And the tip is not poisonous. They never poison the tip. They wrap sinew around the shaft, and they poison the shaft, because if the arrow is shot, it will penetrate deep enough, because of the nature of the arrow, that the shaft will go in two. So you're actually poisoning the animal with the shaft of the arrow, not with the tip, which is very important, because it's such a lethal poison that if you were to cut yourself by mistake, you're done for. And it's only produced at they get the varying mixtures at a certain tree, and they will make it there at the tree, and they never camp at that tree. They camp away from it. So the children are never allowed anywhere near those trees. So they're very, very careful about it, which I suppose is something you have to be when you're dealing with serious poisons in that regard. Welcome to the toasted one. I hope you are suitably toasted tonight. But yeah, as you can imagine, it's quite a big deal. So the Weir hyena, we've met it before among the Beta Israelites and the Ethiopian Jews, as they are known. We've met them in Central Africa. We've met them in a number of different places around the world, and they are absolutely very, very interesting simply because of what they are. So it's the kind of being, if you will, that has spread all over Africa, but also South Africa. So a were hyena is a therianthrope, as we have seen. In other words, part animal and part man. You might also refer to it as a hyenanthrope if you wanted to, though that doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. We find it in Africa, we find it in Eurasia, and generally it's linked to dark magic. I remind you, as when we did look at witchcraft and witches, when we did Africa, we pointed out that while many types of community figures may use magic, none of them are referred to as witches as long as they are good. Whereas if you're referred to as a witch, it specifically means somebody who uses bad magic. So as we are on the South African and African kick at the moment, if we refer to a witch, we are using in the African sense, which means a bad magic user specifically. Because of course we have several other varieties, such as the Inyanga, the Sangoma and more, that are not bad, but they do use magic. And in the context of the cultures here, they wouldn't be considered witches at all, not unless they went bad. Now, they're a very interesting sort of creature, because some people say, and this is where the balance comes in, that's quite important. Some people say that they are humans that can turn into hyenas. However, some people say that's not actually the case. They are hyenas that can turn into people, which is sort of the reverse. So instead of a werewolf, it's a wolf-were, if that makes sense. It's the reverse thereof, which is really kind of cool. I don't know, if you are from Southern Africa and you have an opinion on that, do let me know. I'd be interested to hear. But what are they known for? Well, first of all, the obvious. And this is interesting because in proper therianthropic traditions, if you go back to the original, not the modern in the movies variety, a shapeshifter is either fully human or fully animal, if they are a proper therianthrope. They don't travel between, but the first one that has always able to do three forms, so fully human, fully hyena, and halfway through, like in the modern movie type idea of a werewolf, where it's a man shape but with a wolf's head, etc., etc. So this is the first time that in the original stories this was believed to be possible. So it makes them somewhat unique in that regard. De Wet clarifies for us as well that yes, in case you're not South African, Isangoma is a good magic user, and in South Africa we don't refer to them as a witch, because witches only refer to bad ones. they would only be referred to as an Isangoma or an Inyanga, and I never remember the actual name for it, the blacksmith, which is also a magic user in South African culture, just so as you know. Now, in this sense, generally, weir hyenas are always associated with witches, which again, as I said, means the bad kind. Now, why is that so? Well, hyenas are often seen as bad, which I think is a terrible thing. I've always been very fond of hyenas, far more so than lions and such. So, but maybe it's viewpoint. They are very much seen to be carnivorous, operating at night, stalking and luring humans away into the dark, and then of course having dinner on them. So I suppose for the most part people wouldn't like them if they were dinner. They are very strong in a lot of different cultures in all over Africa, not just South Africa, with both a certain kind of respect but quite a lot of fear. They are absolutely connected to witchcraft, witches, evil magicians, and it's believed that whether they are a hyena that can turn into a man or a man that can turn into a hyena, and when I say man I mean generically in that women as well, of course, they are people, or they are witches that do the change voluntarily. It's not a curse, as it is in many other cultures. It's not something that is done to someone by somebody else. This is always a voluntary thing, which is very interesting. And yeah, De Wet pointed out something which I think is very important. If you didn't know, when it comes to looking after the family, lions are absolute arseholes. They're terrible. Whereas hyenas are really, really good family people. And in fact, they do not scavenge any more than lions or any other creature. Their one downside is they don't look as pretty with their manes and all like lions, and so they get a bad rep. But they're an amazing creature, and their bite strength is probably one of the strongest bite strengths of any animal in the world, known to exceed 1,800 pounds of pressure per square inch due to the incredible nature of their jaw muscles, which go right over the skull. They're not just on the sides like pretty much everything else, which makes them a truly terrifying thing. They suspect, see, the problem is that hyenas are actually really intelligent, and they know what people are trying to do, and they actually mess around with the researchers, which means that it's quite possible that their bite strength can exceed 2,000 psi quite easily. They're not sure, simply because the hyenas, what they would do to test an animal's bite strength, and all animals fall for it, is you put the pressure plate inside a piece of meat, and of course the animal bites it and you can see how strong the bite is. But hyenas know that, and then very carefully nibble the meat off around the outside and then walk away laughing, and they can laugh. So you never manage to actually test them properly. But I had a friend who was a quite high-ranking game ranger and did a lot of research and stuff. And what happened, there was a veld fire, and the hyena parents were killed in the fire, and they had a number of unweaned babies. And they obviously, they didn't want the babies to die. but they wanted them to stay in the wild. So they created this special machine that would dispense suitable hyena milk to help these babies. It was a very clever test, and it worked. It was very good. All right, the boys, yeah. Oh, and thanks to EMS for sharing the live. So anyway, we're talking about cubs. Now, what they had on this machine were stainless steel teats. Okay, proper stainless steel. The cubs, unweaned babies, chewed the metal teats off the machine. That's how strong their bites are. So yeah, it's a pretty powerful creature. And thank you very much, Emma. Ems, thank you. So yeah, they're an amazing creature just in and of themselves, even without the connection to magic and shape-shifting. But unfortunately, because of culture and fear and more, they are also... I didn't even see it, Blakes. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Sorry, I was caught up in what I was doing. I do appreciate that greatly. Thank you. And in fact, there comes in, goodness gracious, 3 of them too. Wow, thank you so much, Blake 2010. Huge props for that. I do appreciate. So my eyesight is not always so great at this time of life, and I tend to peer, which means if I'm staring at the bottom of the screen, I don't always see what's up at the top, which is a terrible bad habit of mine, which I do need to fix on myself and possibly get my eyes checked. Again, I'm a little bit out of the right time for doing it, but you know how it goes, and you just never manage to get around to getting it done again. And it's expensive. Good Lord, is it expensive. But thank you for that, and I do apologize, Blake. It was very, very kind of you. Now, as I was saying, they get a bad rep for various reasons, and so they're often depicted as engaging in various acts of debauchery and transgression, and are said to do grave robbing, cannibalism, and village raiding, which has a certain amount of truth to it, but not entirely. Without the... I'm not too sure what you mean there, Devet. Sê maar in Afrikaans, ek sal in Engels vir die ander mense sê. And Ems said, Ems followed as well, thank you so much. And then she says, please. I'm not sure why you said please. But huge thanks anyway to you. I'm going to say that by and large, lions do just as much of these things as any other animal out in the wild, because, well, they're wild animals. And I wouldn't particularly blame the hyena alone for these things. They are excellent hunters and do hunt a great deal. Dankie, dis hoekom ons hulle skiet, want hulle maak die bababokke dood sonder dat die maar weer. Well, yes, that is true. They are remarkably good hunters, and they are known to take their chances. And Devet points out that as farmers, they often have to shoot them, because they will go in and take out baby goats, baby sheep, baby cows, and more. And they are so good at it, they can do it without even alerting the parents. So they can be quite a serious threat to farmers in this country, which is kind of sad. Because, well, they are very intelligent and they are very effective in that regard. Now, we do know that the concept of the were hyena has gone into a number of different cultures around the world. But it basically started in Africa. De Wit's pointed out that even their alarms don't pick them up, and it's true. They are very clever. They know where the alarms are. Hyenas are immensely intelligent, especially the larger striped. And the spotted, which is the famous one everybody knows, the laughing hyena, is the spotted one. But you will find legends of were hyenas among the Arabs, the Berbers, and varying other Middle Eastern cultures, not just in Africa. Now, in the Kanuri language of the Bornu Empire, the were hyena is referred to as the Bultungin, which literally means I change myself into a hyena. Now, while most lore describes human shapeshifters, and generally like werewolves are people that in some way become a wolf and so on, in Africa it works pretty freely both ways. You can have hyenas that become people, or you can have people that become hyenas, and it's very difficult to tell which way is which in that regard, which makes it quite interesting. Now, in that sense, we see a lot of people around the world have known of hyenas. There are cave hyena subspecies from all over the world, including things like France and more. And in fact, there's some very interesting paintings in the Charvet cave in France showing not only a hyena, but one in profile that appears to be almost half upright, maybe implying something more. And it's definitely not a cave bear, it is a large cave hyena. So at a time they were all over the place. They've basically died out in many places, which is kind of sad. We do know that they are able to do that terrible laugh thing, which is really quite terrifying if you ever hear it. I've been out in the Kruger and heard them laughing at night when lions are around, because they don't get on with lions at all. And I've got to tell you, if you really want to learn how to get the tightest glutes ever, be out at night in the dark and hear that laugh, because let me tell you, it reminds, okay, if you're too young, block your ears, but there was an amazing story told to me the other day that said that if you're ever attacked by a lion in the dark, the one thing that will chase them away is if you fling human feces at it, because they associate that smell with danger and they will flee. Just never do it at a hyena, because they associate that smell with dinner. And one of the guys turned around and said, yes, but where will I find human feces in the dark at night when there's a lion? And the guy looked at him dead on and said, don't worry, it will be apparent. Oh yes, De Wet pointed out that not only are they very, very clever, they will get into houses to steal cooked meat. That what you would call a barbecue, that we real people call a braai. In South Africa, we don't barbecue. And in fact, I know of a bunch that forgot their potjie pot, and we make a certain kind of stew in South Africa, if you don't know. It's made in a cast iron pot called a potjie, and it's very, very tasty. But this guy made a stew like this over the fire one night for everybody, and when they went to bed they forgot to take it in, and when they got up in the morning, the hyena had literally not only eaten all the remains of the stew out, had torn the pot open, a cast iron pot he had chewed apart to get at the remaining stew. So yeah, it'll give you an idea of how strong their jaws are. Now, when they say it may be up to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch that it can bite, the really big bone in your leg between hip and knee, okay, in order for that to break, you need 20 pounds of pressure per square inch, which will give you an idea of how pathetic you are in relation to the bite of a hyena. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Those things are tough. Now in Africa, the spotted hyena is generally portrayed as an abnormal and rather ambivalent animal. It's considered to be sly, brutish, necrophagous, meaning it will eat the dead, and dangerous. It embodies physical power, excessiveness, ugliness, stupidity, and in a certain weird way, sacredness. Now, I can tell you right now, do tell us what, De Wet. First of all, they are not brutish. They are very sly. They can be necrophagous. They are absolutely dangerous. I wouldn't say they are excessive or anything like that. They are not ugly, and they are certainly not stupid. They are very intelligent. So it's bad press. Now, De Wet says they're scared of one thing. I'm curious to know what he thinks they are scared of. He would know, living out on a farm. So I'll be interested to hear his comment on that. Now, spotted hyenas do vary dependent on the ethnic group in how they are depicted. But in general, nobody much likes them, which is very, very sad. Now, of course, for those of you who don't know, there are several kinds of hyena. The famous one that we know, the laughing hyena, is the spotted hyena. But you also get the striped hyena and the brown hyena. So different ones. We do know that, like in West Africa, for example, spotted and striped are given the same name, so they don't differentiate between them, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's just me. They are supposed to symbolize immorality, dirty habits, the reversal of normal activities, and all kinds of negative traits. And they are often depicted for some weird reason as bad Muslims who challenge the local animism that exists, especially in Côte d'Ivoire. So weird. The Tabwa mythology in East Africa portrays them as a solar animal that first brought the sun to warm the cold earth. So some see them as useful or good. I don't know how true that is. We shall have to wait and see. But they are both nocturnal and diurnal, dependent on what they feel like, it seems. But they are very intelligent, as I keep saying, so they choose what suits them most. But at night they are terrifying. Now in the cultures Umbugwe in Tanzania, they are linked very much to witchcraft, which is also true here in South Africa. And every witch is supposed to own one, which are referred to as their night cattle, and are of course branded with an invisible mark. And all hyenas are owned by witches. There are no truly wild ones at all. And they say that they are milked by their owners to make hyena butter, and are used to ride as well. And when a witch acquires a hyena mount, he'll ride it to distant lands to bewitch victims and return safely home in the morning. So this is very similar to what they say in South Africa as well, which is why I'm just going through all of it. And when you actually do kill a hyena, you're supposed to remove its ears, tail and front legs, and then bury it separate to them, in order to ensure that it can't come back and the witch can't come back and get you. And they do say that if a child is born at night while a hyena is crying, it will grow up to be a thief. But is that true? We don't know. We do know that all over Africa, they are considered to be dangerous and frightening and more. Weirdly enough, and this is entirely wrong as well, they are said to be cowardly in Western culture, which shows how little the Western world knows about the spotted hyena, because they are absolutely not cowardly at all. Aristotle gave a long description of hyenas, which, given he had never seen one and only heard of them vaguely, makes you wonder what he thought he was doing. He also did get one thing right, because people always believed that hyenas were hermaphrodites, which is not true. And he did say that that wasn't correct at all. They do say in Greek culture, also wrong, that they are able to imitate human voices, which is kind of weird. So yeah, you get weird stories told. We know that they didn't really know much about hyenas, in that they drew beautiful pictures to go with their explanations, none of which actually look like hyenas. So clearly they'd never seen one ever, which sort of tells you everything in that regard. So yeah, where hyenas are all over Africa, and are very, very important in that regard. I have to say that Disney's The Lion King did them a huge disservice, because really and truly the real villains of the savannah are the lions, who are terrible. And really and truly, I dislike lions quite severely. They are nasty creatures. I would rather know more of the noble cheetah. I've met a number of them, and they are wonderful animals, whereas lions are not. But as we move along, we need to talk about some more shapeshifters, which, again, in Africa, many of the shapeshifters are not people that can turn into things, but animals that can turn into things, including people, which is interesting. Now, we get some weird stories around this, And some say that the people who came to South Africa did so in pursuit of a fleeing god. That this god got sick of human mimicry and destructive ways and left them. And humans, unable to take the hint, followed, and eventually the deity in question then fled to the skies where people couldn't follow. And the first man stayed there to lay the foundations of culture and civilization. Was that true? Well, I can imagine God getting irritated with people, so yeah, why not? I can go with that. Hey, Cosmic Rain. So I'll take that as a possibility. But amongst other things, one of the great shapeshifters we need to know about is Impundulu. Now, Impundulu is a creature that sometimes they say might even be under the control of a truly powerful witch. But if you are a witch and want to control one, do it with care, because this is the famed lightning bird, capable of shape-shifting, casting curses, and is often used as a source for some really powerful medicines. And so if you're strong enough to control one, great, but if not, it will get you. It's said to be the size of a full-grown man. The Impundulu is very impressive. A huge bird with black and white feathers, clearly a bird of prey with great hooked beak, with powerful wings that are able to create massive winds and rough storms, huge talons that it can use to create lightning and strike whatever it wishes. So with that, the Impundulu has the ability to control the weather, sometimes at the behest of the witch controlling it. But an Impundulu without a master, and it can cause nothing but chaos and bring storms and diseases and even get out of control. So they say that they should be controlled, perhaps. We don't know. To maintain the control, witches who give their orders need to ensure that these creatures are well fed. And taking the form of an attractive man, the Impundulu will be allowed to feed on a village. And Impundulu drinks blood and feasts on both animals and people, able to kill an entire herd or family in very short order. So definitely a dangerous creature. Though often fatal, these attacks may leave survivors from time to time and introduce a dangerous disease that will cause the surviving victims to slowly waste away. Through a cruel fate, an improperly fed Impundulu can go berserk and go on a rampage if left unchecked. To ensure this never happens and to maintain the power for themselves, the witch controlling the Impundulu will pass on control of the creature from one generation to the next, from mother to daughter. So it seems that they are controlled by the women. But there are other things that control the weather, not just the Impundulu, shapeshifters though they be. And one of those which is quite important is Inkanyamba. Now, they're kind of like gigantic eels with horse-like heads, finned manes, and massive fins on the back, much like wings. They are thought to be a terrifying figure that has been depicted even in cave paintings. They are especially important to me because they are found in certain places especially under the great waterfalls such as Howick Falls, which is not that far from me. And Howick Falls does indeed have an Nkanyamba in it. So you better be careful if you ever come to Howick, because the falls are impressive and are certainly worth visiting, but there may be more down there. Now, they are migratory predators traveling great distances, leaving their location vague at any given moment. They move to follow their food supply. As I say, they are aggressive carnivores, and they have been sighted miles from their native waters. It is thought by some to simply be a larger than average, excuse me, kind of an eel. But that's not really quite accurate. These things can grow to 30 or 40 feet, according to some of the stories I've heard. And I've heard quite a few stories around here. If you were possibly very, very stupid or very, very brave, they keep treasures in their lairs under their main homes. So apparently there are treasures under Howick Falls, but I for one would not go down there to try and get them, because yeah, I think I would be terrified. So there is that. See if I can pop you a picture of this particular Howick Falls, because I will say that I'm quite impressed with the size of the falls, that it is really quite pretty and very much worth seeing, but they are tall and dangerous. They are also known to be a place where more than one individual has gone a little crazy and jumped from, which I would never ever advise doing, because yeah, not the best place to go from. It's pretty rocky all the way down, and I'm not saying it's a good thing anyway in that regard, just so as you know, but it has been popular for that. They are very territorial, and they will return to their special place, in this case Howick Falls, with their newfound mates, if they get one, very often, and they will attack anything that tries to enter their personal grounds, including each other. You need to watch waters very carefully, and you might sometimes see two Nkanyamba battling over space, resource, or mates. If you're lucky or unlucky, depending on your view, you might even see one of them in its special mating ritual, though witness accounts say that the mating rituals look a great deal like fighting. So, well, I don't know. But now, De Wet was asking about die groot slang. And for those of you who don't know, die groot slang is the Afrikaans name for, quite literally, the great snake. Now, we know in Africa there are many great snakes, and the one in South Africa is said to be up to 60 feet long. It's said to be something a cross between a giant serpent and possibly an elephant, and might have fangs. It's kind of hard to say. Or just a giant snake with an elephant-like head. It seems to be somewhere between the two. Different stories say different things, but by and large, not very many people have ever seen such a thing, and is still around to tell you all about it. It's a 60-foot snake after all. But it's said to be incredibly cunning, very strong. It likes to lurk in deep waters or dark caves. And and it's known to feed on its favorite prey for the most part, which is elephants. Now, the initial creature was a kind of elephant snake, and the gods realized that, yeah, it was just too much for the world. You couldn't manage to survive with that. So they decided to separate it into two creatures. So they separated these creatures into elephants and snakes, but they were a bit late with their idea, and one or two of the Groot-slangs managed to hide. So it still is sneaking around somewhere, probably in South Africa, probably along the Orange River, in caves there, and they lure unsuspecting people into the river and then drag them down and devour them. So we have big snakes and we have big elephants, and we have something that is the combination called the Groot-slang, that hoards diamonds and precious metals and stones, but it might be persuaded to let you go if you give it your diamonds. I don't have any, so I'd be pretty stuffed, but who's to say? Don't mess with the Groot-slang, because it is that frightening. But of course there is more. Other things among the Xhosa people, you have the Amanuna. Being that the Xhosa do revere, they are semi-divine or godlike, and according to things that were said by Credo Mutwa, who would know after all, they are almost like elves. They're sort of the African equivalent of elves, and they can change their shape and appearance as they wish to. And if you ever meet somebody, especially a woman, who never seems to age, she might well be an Amanuna. And indeed, among the Xhosa, if you find somebody who loves to change their makeup all the time and change how they look all the time, they're often teased, Inunanyam, to say that she is a shapeshifter like that. It's a bit of a joke, but the Amanuna are literally your elves of Africa. They said that they favor women over men, and that somehow women can give power to them in that way, and that because women are able to give birth and create like the Creator, they're considered important more so than men to these elf-like creatures. Is that true? Not sure. But nevertheless, it's an interesting story. The elves turn up in so many cultures. The Tuatha De Danann, the children of Anun, what's the Navajo, the Nunahe, and then these people as well. So elves all over the world, and described very similar despite that, which is quite interesting. But yes, so we have the Impundulu, the lightning bird. We have the creature that lives below Howick Falls, the great dinosaur-like cryptids that include the Groot-slang and, of course, what did we say it was? My brain has gone blank for some reason. The Inkanyamba, which is interesting because in Zimbabwe you have a similar tale described in a similar way as well. So we absolutely have shapeshifters there. Now, what else can we say about these things? Well, we also have the rather interesting Kongamato, which is a flying monster also in southern Africa, which basically in its description is exactly a pterosaur. That's what it is. It's a pterosaur. There's no doubt about it. So did we have them within human memory in South Africa? Quite possibly. It seems that we may well have, and the stories remain. The Ikanyambe in our area in Central Africa is referred to as the Mokelembembe. So they've got the same thing, described the same, pretty much, just a different name. So they're around. The Groot-slang we've spoken of. You have the Agogwe. Now the Agogwe is a very, very interesting creature, and we need to absolutely speak more on it, because we have the Yeti. Yes, we know about the Yeti. We have Bigfoot. Well, in Africa, we've got Agogwe. Now, before we go more deeply into that, we will briefly talk about another thing, the Dingonek, which is a kind of fox-like creature. And what's really interesting about that one is that it might actually be real. So there. Now, what about the Agogwe, which is far more interesting? It was spotted in a number of places around Africa, mostly East Africa, but also down to the south as well. We know that in 1937, Captain William Hitchens reported that he was on an official lion hunt in the forest in the East Africa, and they were waiting to try to catch a man-eating lion which was causing trouble. And I saw two small brown furry creatures come from one side of the forest into the glade we were in, and then disappear into the thickets on the other. They were about 4 feet high, walking upright, but with red hair. The hunter with me gazed in mingled fear and amazement and said they were Agogwe, the furry men. They are absolutely not monkeys, but halfway between something like a monkey and a person. Now we know that the next year Cuthbert Burgoyne wrote a letter to the journal saying that he was in East Africa as well, and while they were out, they came across a number of baboons who were hunting for and picking up shellfish and crabs from the shores of this body of water or beach that they were on, yes, by the ocean. And then two pure white baboons were among them, and these were very rare, but I had heard of them previously and wanted to see such things, so with a chance like this, obviously stopped to check them out, as you would, absolutely. However, while they were watching the baboons, and clearly this guy knows the difference, two little brown men walked together out of the bush and down among the baboons. They were not like any other monkey, but did not disturb the baboons. They were at some distance, but they were small, human-like, 4 foot tall, quite upright and graceful in figure. At first I thought it was a kind of monkey I did not know, and I told a friend and big game hunter all about it, who replied that he had seen such things as well when they were out, and they were told that they were not monkeys, but the natives forbade them to shoot as they were a people. Now, has there ever been proof of such things? Well, not found proof, but then is there ever? Now, what other interesting creatures can we speak of? We can speak of, for example, the Obaifo and the Obansam, which are both a kind of witch, which can change their forms, obviously, into both other people or creatures. They are linked to all kinds of good and bad witchcraft type things. You also have the Adze from West Africa, which are blood-sucking spirits that are kind of a spirit, something like a vampire, but they can possess people and turn their new host into shape-shifting firefly-like creatures. Possessed individuals, the Astos, may have a floating ball of light emerge from them that then becomes an owl, firefly, or beetle. They feed on the life force of people. Other interesting shape-shifting creatures do exist, of course, but those are some of them. There are also quite a lot of other interesting cryptids that are not shapeshifters. So the first one is the Fudu in South Africa, or as we call it in Afrikaans, the Waterbobiaan. And it's a large and terrifying creature with powerful arms, about 6 foot tall, but which somewhat resembles a baboon. It's mostly been seen in the northern parts of South Africa, and is known for preying on livestock, even killing humans, and leaving behind completely dismembered remains. Sightings have been reported by all different races since the 1800s, and it's essentially the large form of a South African Bigfoot, just as we have the little ones too. You then also have a particular one which might actually be a kind of early proto-human, specifically known to be only from the Knysna forest, or the Knysna area, which is called the Otang, and is kind of, again, a sort of proto-human, halfway between ape and man. And we are now realizing that the scientific idea of you had Homo erectus and then you had Homo sapiens, rah, is not correct at all. Homo erectus was one kind. You also have Homo florensis. You also have the Dionysian man from Russia, and you have this one from Knysna. So there were a number of different kinds of early humanoids that might have been around till a lot more recent than you might think. So yeah. But that alone is not all. We also have a number of other legends which may or may not be some kind of a Bigfoot-like creature, such as Oldfoot, which is also from Knysna and in the Western Cape, Notranka, from the Port Alfred area. These are all names for basically what might be a Bigfoot-like creature. And they did find a large fossilized footprint in Mpumalanga that was left by somebody very big and could have been a giant. But maybe not. Maybe it was a Bigfoot. After all, we call them Bigfoot because they have big feet. Now, we are not the only country in Africa to have such things. Among the Wolof people, they have the Yumbos, or Bakna Rakhna. Bakna Rakhna in the Wolof language in Senegal means good people. And yes, they are elves. They stand about 2 feet tall, they have silver hair, and they are pearly white in color. They live beneath a number of hills, just like elves do in all kinds of cultures, and they come out to dance in the moonlight. They feast on large tables, waited on by servants who are invisible except for their hands and feet. They like to eat corn, which they generally steal from humans, fish, which they catch on their own, and will invite you to their feasts if they think that you will make good company. So we have our own fairies and elves in Africa, and the weird part is how closely they resemble the descriptions of elves and fairies in all kinds of other cultures that they would have no contact with until most recently. Which tells you what? I don't know. You must make your own decision there. So, yeah, they do exist. They are out there. And maybe that's important. They also have, for example, the Obaifo, which is the West African vampire witch from among the Ashanti. And again, they seem to be able to shapeshift and fly, which is most important. But many of these vampire types in Africa, for some reason, like to turn into balls of light. Not entirely sure why that is, because they don't necessarily do it in other cultures. But nevertheless, we have our own vampires that are shapeshifters in Africa, which is quite interesting to add to our cultural view of weirdness. We've spoken of the Inkanyamba, of course. Let's see if our picture turned up. It didn't turn up. Why did it not turn up? It just didn't want to, because I really want to show you how it falls. It's well worth the view thereof. That one didn't work. This one did. Let's see if we can pop it up for you and show you what I have by me, because it's cool. Where we will find our Kanyamba. This is not my picture, I stole it. But there you go. It's very high. It is very beautiful. And it has a giant mythological Mkolombembe type creature living under it that might eat you if you try to steal its diamonds. There you go. Lovely place. What you don't see in the middle of the picture up above, actually there is a viewing area where you can stand and look down on this, which is pretty cool as well. The other side is private property or wild, and you can't go there. Protected. There are otters at the bottom. I have been there, and there are otters, which is really quite cool, and it's beautiful, very, very beautiful. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, amongst other things, we also have the Adze, which again is a vampire shapeshifter, able to take the form of a firefly or a human, and it can possess things, just like our last creature. And this one comes from the Iwe people of Ghana and Togo. So it seems that pretty much all around Africa, we agree on what is out there. We know what's there, and we believe it. So we also have the Eloko, which are a kind of dwarf that live in the dark parts of the rainforest in central Zaire. They, like all dwarfs, guard treasure, the game, and the rare fruits of the forest. And they will haunt the forest because they have a dislike for people. They live in hollow trees and dress in leaves. But they are either furry or the grass grows on their body. They're a kind of dwarf-like thing, and they have long, sharp claws and little bells that they use to cast spells on passers-by. And you need protection if you ever go in the rainforest, or they will get you. So yes, they are another version of the elves or fairy of Africa. But now in South Africa, one of the things that we do have are shadow people. Now, what are shadow people? Because we keep coming across them, and the closest description that we can get, actually we do manage to get from the Quran, believe it or not, and associated writings, in the form of the jinn. The jinn are not necessarily good or bad. They are not cryptids. They are another race. They just don't live entirely in this world, according to what we are told. And they can slip between their world and ours. But when they are only partly in this world, they appear as shadow people. Now, we've got shadow people all over Africa, and absolutely in South Africa. Now, they might be able to be masters of illusions as well, which is interesting because among the northern Sotho people, they speak of the Sawe, and it refers to the dark, formless presences that can take possession of the mind, making you become confused and lost and possibly harmed. They are associated with confusion, illusions, sleep paralysis, and more. They are usually described as dark human-shaped silhouettes, sometimes with glowing red or yellow eyes that can move around independently of anything else. They often appear in the peripheral vision, vanishing if you look directly at them, and often coming with a feeling of paralysis or terrifying dread when encountered. But where do you find them? Usually when you're on your own in wild places or abandoned places. They do like graveyards, apparently. They don't like people all that much. So it seems that by and large, the way to avoid them is to stick by lots and lots of other people in that regard. So yeah, maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not, I don't know. But they are, after all, very, very important in Muslim views. But I find it most interesting that independent of the Muslim writings, where they go into quite a lot of detail about them, you will find them in a lot of other cultures where they are seen, if nothing else. So maybe that tells you something about it. Now, by and large, jinn, by that name, are from Islamic folklore. That they say it's become part of local belief systems, often linked with curses, spells, and dark places. But I would argue this entirely. The word or name jinn has come here from the Islamic folklore, but the creatures have been spoken of under other names in Africa and South Africa for centuries before there was ever Muslim influence, which implies that they've been seen by lots of people, and it's not something that we can say is specifically one religion's view of things. No, they are seen by a great many things. They say that jinn as jinn originated in pre-Islamic Arabic paganism and later were incorporated into Islamic beliefs and then spread into Africa, including South Africa. I would argue this entirely. It's absolutely untrue. There have been stories of these things under different names for centuries. Some people say that the Isangomas can get rid of these creatures and other holy people of varying religions. How true that is, I suppose you would have to ask your holy person. They like dark places like caves, cemeteries, and abandoned buildings. This is a common belief wherever shadow people appear, regardless of what you call them. So absolutely true. Now, belief suggests that they can influence humans by causing mental disturbance, possessing them, influencing them, their relationships, and leading them into sin. There you're starting to slide into particular religious beliefs rather than looking at the objective idea of what the creatures might be. So I'm not going to dive too much into that. They have turned up in all kinds of different cultures and ideas. They are absolutely believed in by many people around the world, including South Africa. And yes, very much in the Muslim community, obviously, but also in other communities. So make of that as you will. They are said to have magical powers, yes. Oddly enough, except in one or two sort of kiddie stories, I've almost never encountered them being said to be able to grant wishes. They do have magical powers, but not really that they grant wishes or live in bottles like in the stories. Hey Cyril, how you doing? So yeah, I would argue a lot of what is said about that. One thing Africans know, whatever variety of African they may be, and yes, I do consider myself to be an African in case you are wondering, is we know that there are spirits out there of all kinds, and knowing that is quite important. So there are plenty of things to consider in that regard. But in terms of these shadow creatures, they do say that there are actually a number of different varieties, which is quite interesting. You have your ifrits, which are very powerful, generally underground, might be somewhat bad, related very strongly to the fire of which they are born. The Marid, possibly the most powerful and intelligent of the jinn, associated with water, the sea, and maybe giving magical help. The Gul, which we get the word gaul from, are cannibalistic flesh-eating creatures that inhabit graveyards and lonely places, animalistic and shapeshifters, so they can hide. A very low form of jinn. You have the hin, again, who are almost the animal form of these beings, a very weak one, and they appear as dogs or other creatures for the most part. Now, the list that I've got, they've mixed with a few other things, so they've added the shaitan to the mix, but they are not jinn, that's something else entirely. You have the sila, intelligent and secretive, fairly tolerant of humans, but able to shapeshift into any form they like, and therefore walk among people without you being aware. Then you have the nasnas, which are chimeric jinn. Describing them would say that they are the most traditional of these shapeshifters, changing between specifically animal forms, but being part human. Now, the general jinn are known as Jan. They are ancestral jinn, often connected to particular families in that regard, the ordinary type. And then the last one is the Kareen, which is a jinn that is connected to a very specific human. So not just any person, one specific. It's almost your doppelganger in that regard. So these are the different things. So you classify your forms of jinn, or jani, shall we say, by the classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. So the ifrits are fire, water is the marid. I'm not too sure which ones go with air and earth. I shall have to find out more, because now I'm very curious. But they are known to live alongside us. So we will see them within South Africa all over. And they can move around. They can possibly inhabit or possess another body, including a dead one, which is how you get a ghoul. So very interesting. Can we know more about that? Well, not really. Those are the things that are out there. And yes, they go bump in the night. So what do you think? Would you say there are many shapeshifters in your culture? What culture should we look at next? Certainly South Africa has many, but I will say of all the different shapeshifters of the world, the were hyena is my favorite. I've always had a very soft spot for hyenas anyway. I've made that fairly clear, I'm sure. So I like them for what they are. And I think that they are wonderful creatures, given a very bad rap. But nevertheless, it's an interesting story that might be told. And there are more shapeshifters than I initially imagined, as well as more weirdness in South Africa that is echoed around Africa, which again I find very interesting. The more the ideas are shared, the more you realize that maybe there's more truth to this than you previously actually believed. Who's to say? It's a difficult story to really answer to in that way, but it's a good one, and it's an interesting one, and it lets us learn far more than we thought we would about the shapeshifters of the world. And with that, I'm going to say that I think we should move on to a different country in the next live. I think perhaps it's time to look at the different shapeshifters of North America. There are quite a few, and while there are said to be werewolves that side, that's not really their thing. They have far more interesting shapeshifters to talk about, and some of them are really quite funky. So we shall go there in the next live, and until then I'm going to tell you all to remember that like, share, subscribe, do what you do, because we rely on you to make this work. And it's been a wonderful live. I've learned more than I thought I would. I hope you did too. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it was a very interesting evening's chat, and I think it's something that can only improve our understanding of the world and life by hearing these different stories. So the more you know, as they say. But we have reached our end, and so I will bid you good night in the way that I always do. I will bid you sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open, and keep that holy object near at hand just in case, because after all, as we have now found, there are many things out there that go bump in the night, and if you're not careful, it's eminently possible that they may go bump for you. Good night.